She still remembers the exact smell of the floor, cold linoleum, cleaning solution, and something else. Something sharp and metallic that she had never smelled before and has never been able to forget since. She was lying face down on that floor with her cheek pressed flat against it, her hands trembling so badly she could hear her own rings clicking against the tile. And all she could think, all she could manage in that entire moment, was one single thought. Please, not tonight. Child, let me tell you something. There are moments in life that split your whole existence into two halves. Before and after. Margaret, and that is what we will call her. She found her before and after on an ordinary Tuesday evening in early November, the kind of night that means nothing. Cold enough for a coat, but not cold enough to matter. She had worked that register for 11 years. 11 years of the same faces, the same small talk, the same quiet little corner store in a working neighborhood where everybody knew everybody, nothing much ever happened. She was 54 years old, widowed 3 years prior. Her youngest had just moved to another state for work, and the house felt too big and too quiet in that particular way that only mothers understand. So she picked up extra shifts. Not because she needed the money desperately, though money was always tight, but because the store gave her somewhere to be, someone to talk to. A reason to put on her shoes in the morning. That Tuesday she had been on her feet since noon. Her lower back was aching the way it always did by the 7th hour. She had eaten a peanut butter sandwich from her break bag around 4 o'clock and had been promising herself a proper hot dinner the moment she got home. She was thinking about soup, if you can believe that. Tomato soup and toast. That is where her mind was when the door opened. 2 men. Moving fast, the kind of fast that does not belong in a quiet corner store at 8:47 in the evening. She noticed the speed before she noticed anything else, and then everything happened in a sequence that her brain still plays back in fragments. Never the full thing, always pieces. A voice, very loud and very close. Something cold pressed against the side of her neck. The sound of the other cashier, a young man named Daniel, only 20 years old, making a sound she had never heard a person make before. Half gasped, half something else entirely, and then the floor. She was on the floor and she did not even remember how she got there. They said it was over in 90 seconds. That is what the police report said. 90 seconds from the moment those men walked in to the moment they walked out. 90 seconds. Margaret will tell you, even now, sitting in her kitchen with her coffee going cold, it felt like an entire lifetime passed on that floor. But here is what nobody talks about. Here's the part that the police report did not mention and the news story certainly never covered. Something happened in that store that night that had nothing to do with the robbery, and that is the part that changed her forever. The first voice was the loud one. Aggressive. Controlled in that terrifying way where you understand immediately that this person has done this before. He knew exactly where to stand, exactly what to say, exactly how much fear was required to make 2 people comply without a single moment of hesitation. The second man said almost nothing at all, and somehow, God help her, the quiet one was worse. Margaret could not see much from the floor. She had her face turned slightly to the left cheek on that cold tile, and what she could see was the bottom of the counter, the rubber mat behind the register, and Daniel's sneakers about 4 feet away from her. White sneakers with a blue stripe. She focused on those sneakers the way you focus on something small when everything large is too terrible to hold in your mind. His feet were not moving. Please let that mean he is okay, she thought. Please let still mean safe. The loud man was at the register. She could hear the buttons. Could hear him demanding Daniel walk him through the override. Daniel's voice, and this is the part that broke something open in Margaret's chest when she tells it. Daniel's voice was steady. Shaking, yes, but steady. This 20-year-old boy, barely older than her own son, talking in a low, careful voice, doing exactly what he needed to do to keep them both alive. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the silence that came after the register opened. Because silence in a situation like that does not mean safety. Silence means somebody is deciding something. And Margaret understood, with every nerve in her body pressed flat against that cold floor, that the next 30 seconds would determine something she had no control over whatsoever. She had lived 54 years. She had buried a husband. She had raised children alone. She had handled grief and bills and broken furnaces in January, and every ordinary catastrophe that life hands a woman who has no one to call at midnight. As she had handled all of it, but she had never in her life felt as completely powerless as she did in that silence. And then, complete silence. The quiet man moved. She heard his footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming around the side of the counter, and she squeezed her eyes shut, and the only prayer she could form was wordless. Just pure feeling sent upward with everything she had. He stopped. Right next to her. She could see his shoes now. Dark boots, one lace slightly undone. She stared at that loose lace and she did not breathe. Nobody in that room was prepared for what happened next. He crouched down, right there beside her on the floor, and he said something, quietly only for her, in a voice so low that the other man could not have heard it. She has never repeated exactly what he said to another living soul. Not to the police, not to her children, not to anyone. But she will tell you this much, it was not a threat. What he said to her in that moment cracked the entire story open in a direction nobody expected, including her. Including she believes him. The truth was far darker than a robbery, and far more human than she ever could have imagined lying on that floor. The loud man called out, "Time to go." And just like that, both sets of footsteps moved toward the door. The bell above the entrance rang once, the way it always did, the same cheerful little sound it made when anyone came or went. And then they were gone. Margaret did not move for a very long time. Neither did Daniel. The soup at home went uncooked that night, and for many nights after. Daniel called the police. She remembers that. She remembers him crouching beside her, those white sneakers with the blue stripe right at eye level, and his young voice saying, "Ma'am, they're gone. You can get up. It's okay. They're gone." She could not get up right away, not because she was hurt. She was not physically hurt. Not a single mark on her body, but something had come loose inside her chest that she did not know how to put back into place while she was still on the floor of a corner store at 8:49 on a Tuesday night in November. She sat up eventually. Daniel helped her to the small plastic chair behind the counter, the one she usually sat in during slow afternoons, and he got her a cup of water from the back, and she held it in both hands even though she could not drink it. Just held. The warmth of the cup was the first real thing she could feel. The police came. Reports were made. A manager was called. Her daughter was called. Everything that is supposed to happen, happened. But Margaret's mind kept returning to the floor, to the boots, to the loosely, to those words spoken so quietly that only she received them. I've lived long enough to know that people are not always what the worst moment makes them look like. That is a hard thing to hold on to when you are frightened. Nearly impossible when you are lying face down on cold linoleum. But it is true. I have seen enough of this life to know it is true. The man was caught. Both of them were 3 days later. And when the detective called Margaret to tell her, she asked one question, just one. She asked whether the quiet one had a record. He did not. He was 26 years old. He had a daughter. He had made a catastrophic decision on a November night for reasons that were complicated and human and not hers to judge, and something she does not fully understand what, even now, had made him crouch down beside a frightened 54-year-old woman on a cold floor and say something that was not a threat. She never testified against him specifically. She told the truth of what happened. She left the rest to people whose job it was to decide such things. What she carries still is something harder to name. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet and maybe never fully, but something adjacent to it. Something that allowed her to go back to work 3 weeks later, to stand behind that same register, to hear that same doorbell ring without flinching most days. Some things you never forget, honey. The smell of that floor, the sound of Daniel's steady voice, the sight of a loose bootlace when your whole life feels like it is hanging by a thread. But here's what I want you to hold on to. Long after this story is finished and you have gone on with your day, 90 seconds can break something open in a person. And sometimes, if God is paying attention, it breaks them open toward the light.